Everything that you need to get started in the real estate game, you're about to learn with Josh Janus. I had him on the podcast. I brought him on here onto the YouTube channel to give you guys a little bit more value when it comes to real estate investing. This might help you get your first deal. I hope you like it. Smash the like button if you do. If you think it deserves it, give me a subscribe too. All right, peace.
For sure. So I came into it not knowing a ton about real estate. I had money saved. I was lendable and I was ready to take action on a house hack. However, I wanted to learn the numbers. I wanted to learn to figure out what a quote unquote deal is in real estate because a lot of people think of deals differently. I started cold calling a ton and I was able to learn how to talk real estate. I was able to learn the different strategies that the local investors in my market use to get units. And I was able to end up getting my first deal that way as well.
Like any curious person, I want to know what Josh's first deal looked like. Was it a duplex? Was it a triplex? Was it a single family home? We're about to find out.
I was cold calling different listing agents that had active multifamily properties on the market for long days on the market. And I was calling them, seeing if they would consider a much lower price, if they would consider creative financing, or I would look at the local county auditor of the property to see if the owner of that property had others. And then I was just simply calling the agent saying like, hey, I see your seller also has this other one. Is that something he'd be willing to take an offer on? And I was doing that over and over. And I ended up finding a package of 2 duplexes at a big discount since the seller's note was going to be called in the next 6 months. And I took advantage of that opportunity and closed on it as a classic burr. I didn't want to take on 2 rehabs to start. I just wanted to do one, try to learn from it and go on to the next. So I had to line up one of my investors to buy the other one. So we did it and we closed on the same day using the same lender and everything.
It's awesome to see Josh's success starting out, but many of you guys want to know, can I do the same thing? I don't have a lot of money. I don't have 50 grand to start. Josh breaks down the best way to get financing starting out if you don't have a lot of options as far as lending go.
Hard money is kind of like a spin-off of like loan sharks in a way. You got to be careful because there's not as many restrictions in that space. But basically, they'll give you money for the property and for a good percentage of the renovation funds. And you have to make sure that you get the job done in the timeline, usually 6 to 9 months. And then you want to make sure that your price paid plus your price in renovations, plus your price in hold costs, lending costs, utility costs, etc. You want to make sure that number, whatever that is less than what the property is going to be worth when it's done. Usually you want to shoot for at least 80%, if not less, of the ARV, which is the after repair value. So that was the main focus.
Now you're kind of probably wondering, well, I don't know if I can qualify. How do I know if I can even qualify for hard money? Josh's answer might shock you.
Yeah, so hard money, they only really care about whether you have a strong credit score or a decent one over 650. And then they wanted to make sure that I had enough in cash reserves, whether it's cash or stocks or whatever liquid format of money. I had like 50,000 or something at the time. And that was enough. Every hard money lender is different because there's no like consistent guidelines they're running through. The lenders that I like to use, usually you're putting down 10, maybe 15%, and then they want to see you have like 10% of the purchase price as well in reserves.
Okay.
At least when you close. Maybe that money's allocated to something else, but at least from when you close, that's the goal.
So you've gotten this far and you're probably like, I still don't have any money. I still can't do hard money. I don't have the credit score. I don't have anything to get started.
For sure. Yeah, I would learn how to find deals. So whether that's cold calling, cold knocking, going through different areas and taking pictures of properties that are boarded up or looks like they need a lot of help, and then call those owners and see what situations they're in, how you can help. And if you find a deal, even if you can't buy it, you can put it together in a presentable manner. You can either wholesale it, you could bring it to an agent who will find you a buyer. You could go direct to an investor. You can find these people are everywhere. You can find them on Bigger Pockets. I find them there. I find them on Facebook, LinkedIn. I find them cold calling because I'll cold call and they'll be like, yeah, I'm still buying in my market. Be like, all right, great. What's your email? Whenever I find a good deal here, I'll send it to you. You could build up a list that way as well. But you don't need money necessarily to do any of that. I mean, you need some for internet and whatever, but for the most part, the beginning stages of this is a lot of time and consistency, which a lot of people do not stick with.
Well, that sounds awesome, and Josh did a great job of explaining it. How long does it take? Because you guys, you're busy, and you want to make sure that this thing's going to work within the next 90 days. I'll tell you right now, it definitely might take a little bit longer. This is what Josh says.
But basically, I was studying computer science, door dashing, and cold calling in the beginning. Wasn't sleeping a lot. So I started doing like 2 to 3 hours, 5, 6 days a week. And then I started to find some deals. And then I progressively stopped doing DoorDash and Uber and replaced that time with more calling. So then that got pushed to like 5 to 6 hours a day. And then eventually, when my real estate income exceeded what I would have made with my job as a computer scientist or whatever I am in that field, then I decided to go full time. But that entire time span was 6 to 8 months. You either got to put a lot of time in or a lot of money in or resources in the beginning. It's hard to make anything happen without any of that.
As Josh mentioned at the beginning of this episode, we have to define what a deal is. Josh's definition for the beginning level entrepreneur, person getting into real estate investing as far as finding deals.
If your goal is to multiply it, you're going to want to do deals where you can add value. And when I say add value, that is the gap between your all in and the value of the home. Like that first deal I did, my purchase price plus renovation plus holding costs, plus the refinance costs, everything all together was like 125,000. And my refinance was at 155 or 160, I forget. But basically that gap, that 30K gap is what I made from that deal. That is the value. So if you can find deals where there's value, that is where you can multiply your money quicker because you don't necessarily need to like pay cash for the thing or put 20% down and wait 30 years for that to really like double. This route is riskier. It's way more time consuming. You have to have a really good team around you, especially if you're going to do it remote, because the majority of deals that I'm doing, I'm buying, renovating, and selling them without ever even seeing them. Done that a few times now. And you have to really trust your property manager, your inspector, however many contractors you're utilizing. But I think the Burr book by David Green, a Bigger Pockets author, and obviously the host, is a really good book to read, and a really good principle to apply in your market. You can either refinance as your exit in a market where you can cash flow. If you can't cash flow, you can just sell it. And if it's a big enough gap, maybe you 1031. If not, you just move on to the next deal. But I think that's a really good way of taking whatever money you have to start and multiplying it.
Refinancing is one of the real estate investor's best tools in his tool belt, but starting out, you probably don't know what it is. I asked Josh, and this is the best way to describe what refinancing is.
That's just where you trade the debt. So if you bought something for 100 grand and you put 20,000 into it and you went to another bank and you think it's worth 150 now, maybe in 12 months you want to refinance. You go to the new bank, they'll send an appraiser out. They'll say, hey, this property is worth 150,000 now. Let's say they lend to 80% LTV or 75% LTV. Just to make it easy, let's go 80. So that means they're going to give you 120 grand for the property. If your note before was 100, at closing, they're going to pay off your old note and then you get 20,000 at close. That would repay whatever you put into the property. And then if you're making any cash flow with these basic numbers, that's infinite cash flow because you don't have any of your own money in the deal. It's just a return on nothing, which is cool because that's.
Things have changed a lot in the economy since all the interest rates have collapsed and gone through the roof. And I think that a lot of the lending might actually be a little bit harder to obtain as far as traditional stuff goes. Josh kind of explains that a little more in detail and why it's bad for you if that's the route you want to take.
Sure. So first off, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, one of them, announced that their their new seasoning period, if you get a loan on a property, is 12 months. So you can't refinance into a conventional loan.
Yeah.
It used to be 6 months. So now it's switched. So basically, you're kind of forced to do either wait. I would suggest that. You can go from hard money now to commercial or DSCR, or you can go to local credit unions or banks where they hold their notes. They don't sell them to Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, because the majority of banks are going to abide by their standards, take your loan, and then sell it for a fee and then move on to the next. But if you find somebody local or a bank that holds their notes, they tend to have looser lending. If they give you 100 grand for a property, they're not going to take the note and sell it somewhere. They're going to hold it. So you owe that bank that money. In
Okay.
most cases, they sell those notes to like Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, which are government backed companies, or that's probably not the right word for them. But like if you default, the lender that you worked with, they don't really care because the note isn't with them or that bank. It's with Fannie Mae and they sold it to them.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Josh Janus. He's one of my favorite guests I've had in the podcast because his value level at a young age is just out of this world. Most people are slacking off, partying, drinking, but this man is after it like a dog chasing a meat truck. And you should chase the subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace out.